Dad called after 4 years. "We'll talk at graduation," I replied. "You forgot saying I'm not worth it." He went quiet. Then I walked on stage with a Whitfield medal. My name is Francesca Delaney, and I am 23 years old. 3 weeks ago, I stood on a graduation platform in front of 3,200 people, while my parents, who refused to pay for my education because they didn't think I was worth it, sat in the front row, their faces devoid of color. They came to see my twin sister graduate. They had no idea I was there. They had no idea I would be making the keynote address. But the tale does not begin with graduation. It started 5 years ago, in my parents' living room, when my father looked me directly in the eyes and said something I'll never forget. Before I continue, please take a time to like and subscribe, but only if you enjoyed this tale. Also, let me know in the comments where you're viewing from and what time it is. Let me take you back to that sunny evening in 2020. The admission letters all arrived on the same Tuesday afternoon in April. Madeline was accepted into Whitmore University, a top private institution with a tuition of $68,000 per year. I was accepted to Eastbrook State, a strong public university with an annual tuition of $27,000. Still pricey, but reasonable. That evening, Dad convened a family meeting in the living room. "We need to talk about finances," he continued, sinking into his leather recliner like a CEO addressing shareholders. Mom sat on the sofa, hands folded. Madeline stood near the window, already gleaming with excitement. I sat across from Dad, still holding the acceptance letter. "Madeline, as Dad mentioned, will fund your entire tuition at Whitmore. Room, board, and everything." Madeline squealed. Mom grinned. Then Dad turned to me. "Francesca, we have chosen not to sponsor your schooling." The words did not register at first. "I apologize. Madeline possesses leadership potential. She has good networking skills. She'll marry well. Create relationships. It's a sound investment." He paused. And what happened next felt like a dagger slipping between my ribs. "You're intelligent, Francesca, but you're not unique. There is no return on investment with you." I looked at Mom. She refused to meet my gaze. I looked at Madeline. She was already messaging someone, most likely relaying the good news about Whitmore, so I simply had to find it out for myself. Dad shrugged. "You are resourceful. You'll manage." That night I did not cry. I'd grieved enough over the years about missing birthdays, hand-me-down gifts, and being edited out of family photographs. Instead, I sat in my room and had a life-changing realization. To my parents, I was not their daughter. I wasn't a good investment. But Dad had no idea, and neither did anybody else in the family, that his decision would change the direction of my whole life. 5 years later, he would face the penalties in front of thousands of people. However, this was not a new development. Favoritism had always existed, woven into the fabric of our family like an ugly pattern that everyone attempted to ignore. When we turned 17, Madeline received a beautiful new Honda Civic with a red ribbon on top. I acquired her old laptop, which had a damaged screen and a 45-minute battery life. "We can't afford 2 automobiles," Mom admitted sheepishly. However, they could afford Madeline's ski excursions, fancy prom outfit, and summer abroad in Spain. Family trips were the worst. Madeline always had her own hotel room. I slept on pull-out sofas in the halls. Once, even in a closet that the resort referred to as a lovely nook. Madeline stood in the center of every family portrait, radiant. I was always on the brink, occasionally cut off like an afterthought. When I eventually confronted Mom about it, I was 18 and anxious for answers. She simply sighed. "You're imagining things, sweetheart. We adore you both equally. But deeds do not lie." A few months before the college choice, I discovered Mom's unlocked phone on the kitchen counter. There was an open text thread with Aunt Deborah. I should not have read it, but I did. "Poor Francesca," Mom wrote. "But Richard is correct. She does not stand out. We need to be practical." I put down my phone and walked away. That night I made a decision that no one knew about. I didn't want retribution. I wanted to prove something to myself. I opened my shattered laptop with the fading battery and searched for complete scholarships for independent students. The data loaded slowly, but what I discovered would change everything. I completed the math around 1:45 a.m. I'm seated on my bedroom floor with a notebook and a calculator. Eastbrook State charges $27,000 per year. 5 years, $135,000. Parents' contribution is 0. My savings from summer work are $2,700. The difference was astounding. If I couldn't close it, I had three choices: drop out before I even started, incur seven figures in school debt that would follow me for decades, or study part-time, extending a 5-year degree to 6 or 7 while working full-time. Every road led to the same destination: being precisely who my father claimed I was. The failure, the terrible investment, the unsuccessful twin. I could already hear the family chats during Thanksgiving. Madeline is doing really well at Whitmore. Francesca is still finding things out. However, this was not only about proving them incorrect. It was about proving myself correct. I browsed scholarship databases until my eyes burned. The most important requirements are referrals, essays, and proof of financial necessity. Some were scams. Others' deadlines have already passed. Then I discovered something. Eastbrook offered a merit scholarship program for first-generation and independent students. Tuition is covered in full, along with a living allowance. Is there a catch? Only 6 pupils were picked each year. The competition was severe. I've saved the URL. Then I kept scrolling, and that's when I came across the name that would transform my life. The Whitfield Scholarship. Only 24 students nationally receive a full ride, which includes $12,000 in annual living costs. I laughed aloud. There are 24 students in the entire country. What chances did I have? But I bookmarked it nonetheless. I had 2 options: accept the life my parents planned for me, or create my own. I picked the second option. But to do so, I needed a strategy, and I needed it quickly. That summer I filled out a whole notebook. Every page represented a computation. Every margin was included in the blueprints. Job number 1. Barista at the Morning Grind, a college cafe. 5:30 to 8:30 a.m. Estimated monthly income is $900. Job number 2. Cleaning staff for the residence halls on weekends only, $450 per month. Job number 3. Teaching assistant in the economics department. If I can get that, it'll be another $350. Total, $1,700 each month, or nearly $20,400 per year. Still $6,600 short of tuition. That gap would have to be filled by merit-based scholarships. The sort you earned, not the one you were given. I discovered the cheapest apartment choice within walking distance of college. A small room in a home, shared with 4 other students. $325 per month, including utilities. No parking, no air conditioning, no privacy. It'd have to do. My timetable solidified into something severe but exact. 5:30 a.m. work in the cafe, 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., classes, 6:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., study employment or TA responsibilities. Sleep, 11:30 p.m. to 4:30 a.m., 5 to 6 hours every night for 5 years. Madeline sent images from her Cancun trip with pals, including sunset beaches, margaritas, and laughing, a week before I went for college. I was putting my thrift shop comforter into a second-hand suitcase. Our lives were already splitting, and we hadn't even begun yet. But this is what kept me going. Every night before going to bed I would whisper the same thing to myself. This is the cost of freedom. Freedom from their expectations. Freedom from their judgment. Freedom from requiring their approval. I had no idea how correct I would be. And I had no idea that somewhere on the Eastbrook campus there was a professor who could see something in me that my own parents couldn't. Thanksgiving is celebrated throughout the freshman year. I sat alone in my small rented room. I held the phone to my ear and listened to the noises of home. Laughter in the background, the clink of dishes, the pleasant bustle of a family reunion I didn't attend. Hello, Francesca. Mom's voice seemed distant and preoccupied. Hello, Mom. Happy Thanksgiving. Oh yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, honey. How are you? I'm okay. Is Dad there? Can I speak to him? A pause. Then I saw his voice in the background, muted, yet distinct. Tell her I'm busy. The words landed like stones. Mom's voice seems overly bright. Your father is just in the middle of something. Madeline told the funniest anecdote. It is okay, Mom. Do you eat enough? Do you need anything? I looked around my room, at the instant ramen on my desk, the second-hand blanket, and the textbook I had borrowed from the library because I couldn't afford to buy one. No, Mom. I don't need anything. Okay. Okay, we adore you. I love you too. I hung up. I then opened Facebook. The first thing I saw on my feed was a photo that Madeline had recently shared. Mom, Dad, and Madeline sit at the dinner table. Candles lighted. Turkey is sparkling. The caption: "Thankful for my wonderful family. My lovely family." I focused on the photograph. There are 3 place settings. 3 chairs, not 4. They hadn't even reserved a spot for me. I sat there for a long time, marveling at the image. Something changed inside me that night. The anguish I'd been carrying for years. The desire for their acceptance, attention, and love. It didn't disappear, but it did alter. It hollowed out. And where the anguish had been, there was just silent nothingness. Strangely, the emptiness provided me something that agony never did. Clarity. Second semester of freshman year. Microeconomics 111. Dr. Elaine Carter was a legend at Eastbrook. 28 years of teaching experience, including publications in all major journals. Terrifying reputation. Students murmured that she had not given an A in 6 years. I sat in the 4th row, took detailed notes, and submitted my first essay, expecting a B- at most. The document came back with 2 letters at the top. A red ink message was found beneath the grade. "See you after class." My heart sank. What did I do wrong? Following the lesson, I approached her desk. Dr. Carter was already packing her luggage, her silver hair tied back into a tight bun and reading spectacles perched on her nose. "Francesca Delaney." "Yes, ma'am. Sit down." I sat. She regarded me over her spectacles. "This essay is one of the greatest examples of student writing I've read in 18 years. Where did you study before to this? Nothing exceptional here. Public high school, nothing advanced. And your family? Academics." I paused. "My family does not support my education, either financially or otherwise." The words spilled out before I could stop them. Dr. Carter put down her pen. "Tell me more." So I did. For the first time, I narrated the entire narrative. Favoritism, rejection, 4 jobs, 5 to 6 hours of sleep, all of it. When I finished, she remained silent for a long time. Then she said something that altered my course forever. "Have you heard of the Whitfield Scholarship?" I nodded slowly. "I have seen it, yet it is impossible." She stated there were 24 pupils nationwide. The beneficiaries of full scholarships and living stipends from partner institutions deliver the commencement address at graduation. She leaned forwards. "Francesca, you have enormous potential, but potential is nothing if no one recognizes it. Allow me to help you become noticed." The following 3 years merged into a relentless routine. Wake up at 4:30 a.m., coffee shop by 5. Classes start at 9. Library open till 1 a.m. Sleep and repeat. I missed every party, football game, and late-night pizza run. While other students made memories, I maintained a 4.0 GPA for 8 consecutive semesters. There were times when I almost broke. I once collapsed during a shift at the cafe. Exhaustion, the doctor explained. Dehydration. I was back at work the next day. Another time I sat in my automobile, which was actually Reese Callahan's. She'd given it to me for a job interview and sobbed for 20 minutes. Not because of anything specific, but because everything had happened at the same time for years. But I kept going. Junior year, Dr. Carter summoned me to her office. "I'm nominating you for the Whitfield." I gazed at her. "Are you serious? 9 essays and 4 rounds of interviews. It will be the most difficult thing you've ever done." She paused. "But you've previously made it through more difficult circumstances." The application took 10 weeks of my life. Essays on resilience, leadership and vision, phone interviews with faculty panels, background checks, and reference letters. Madeline texted me in the middle of the conversation. "First time in months. Mom claims you don't return home for Christmas anymore. That is sorta sad. TBH. I read the message. Then I put my phone face down and returned to my essay. The truth. I couldn't afford the plane ticket. But even if I could, I was unsure whether I wanted to go. That Christmas, I sat alone in my rented room with a cup of instant noodles and the miniature paper Christmas tree Reese had created for me. No relatives, no presents, and no drama. It was the most relaxing holiday I'd ever had. The email arrived at 6:52 a.m. on a Tuesday in September of senior year. Subject: Whitfield Foundation. Final round notice. My hands were so shaky that I couldn't scroll. Dear Miss Delaney, congrats. Out of 240 applicants, you were chosen as one of 60 finalists for the Whitfield Scholarship. The final round will include an in-person interview at our New York headquarters. There were 60 finalists and 24 winners. I had a 40% probability if everything else was equal. However, things were never equal. The interview was set on Friday in New York, 860 miles distant. I examined my bank account balance, which was $912. A last-minute flight would cost a minimum of $430. The remaining portions would be consumed by a hotel, and I had rent due in 13 days. I was about to close my laptop when Reese knocked on the door. Frankie, it looks like you saw a ghost. I showed her the email. She screamed. Literally screamed. You're leaving, she said. Beck, this concludes our discussion. I cannot afford it. The bus ticket costs $59, leaves Thursday night and arrives Friday morning. I will lend you the money. I can't ask you to. You aren't asking. I am telling. She grabbed my shoulders. Frankie, this is your opportunity. You do not get another one. So I took a bus. 9 hours overnight. Arriving in Manhattan around 5:15 a.m. with a stiff neck and a borrowed blazer from the thrift shop. The interview waiting room was packed with polished candidates, designer bags, hovering parents, and easy confidence. I looked down at my second-hand outfit and scuffed shoes. I didn't think I belonged here. Then I recalled Dr. Carter's words. You don't have to belong. You must demonstrate to them that you are worthy of it. 12 days after the interview, I was walking to my morning shift when my phone vibrated. Subject: Whitfield Scholarship. I decided to stop in the middle of the sidewalk. A cyclist swerved around me and cursed. I did not hear him. I opened the email. Dear Ms. Delaney, we are delighted to inform you that you have been selected as a Whitfield Scholar for the class of 2025. I read it 3 times. Then 4. Then I sat down on the curb and cried. But not quietly. Strangers stared as they heard ugly heaving sobs. 3 years of exhaustion, loneliness, and unyielding determination poured out of me right there on the sidewalk outside morning grind. I was a Whitfield Scholar, which included full tuition, $12,000 in living expenses per year, and the ability to transfer to any partner university in their network. That night, Dr. Carter called me directly. Francesca, I just received the notification. I'm really proud of you. Thank you for everything. There's something else, she explained. The Whitfield allows you to transfer to a partner school for your senior year. The list includes Whitmore University. Whitmore is Madeline's school. If you transfer, Dr. Carter explained, you will graduate with the highest honors and the Whitfield Scholar will deliver the commencement speech. My breath caught. Francesca, you would be valedictorian. You would give a graduation speech in front of everyone. I thought about my parents, who were sitting in the audience for Madeline's special day, completely unaware that I was there. I'm not doing this for vengeance, I admitted quietly. I understand. I'm doing it because Whitmore offers the best program for my career. I understand that as well. I halted. But if they see you shine, it's just a bonus. I made my decision that night and informed no one in my family. 4 weeks into my final semester at Whitmore, it happened. I was on the 3rd floor of the library, tucked in a corner carrel with my constitutional law textbook, when I heard a voice that made my stomach drop. Oh my God, Francesca. I looked up. Madeline stood 4 feet away, holding a half-empty iced latte and her mouth hanging open. What are you? How are you? She couldn't construct a complete sentence. I closed my book calmly. Hello, Madeline. When did you first start going here? Mom and Dad didn't speak. Mom and Dad do not know. She blinked. What do you mean, they don't know? Exactly as I said. They don't realize I'm here. Madeline set her coffee down and continued to stare at me as if I had appeared out of nowhere. But how? They're not paying for it, so how did you do it? I paid for it myself for Whitmore. I transferred my scholarship. The words hung between us. Madeline's expression shifted. Confusion, disbelief, and something else. Something that resembled shame. Why didn't you tell anybody? I gazed at her. My twin sister. The person who had received everything I'd been denied. The one who hadn't asked me how I was surviving in 5 years. Have you ever asked? She opened her mouth, then closed it. I collected my books. I need to make it to class. Francesca, please wait. She grabbed my arm. Do you hate us? What about the family? I looked at her hand on my sleeve and then at her expression. No. I replied quietly. You can't hate someone you've stopped caring about. I pulled my arm free and walked away. That night my phone lit up with missed calls. Mom, Dad, and Madeline again. I silenced them all. Whatever came, it would be on my terms, not theirs. Madeline contacted them immediately. I know because she told me after everything was over. She's arrived, Madeline said, barely through the door of her apartment. Francesca is attending Whitmore. She has been here since September. According to Madeline, the silence on the other end lasted 12 seconds. Then Dad's voice. That is impossible. She does not have the money. She mentioned scholarship. What scholarship? She is not qualified for a scholarship. Dad, I saw her at the library. She says I'll handle this. Dad called me the following morning. This was the first time he called me in 4 years. Francesca, we need to talk. What is this about? Madeline says you are at Whitmore. You transferred without informing us. I didn't expect you to care. A pause. Of course I care. You are my daughter. Am I? The words came out flatly. Not bitter. Simply factual. You said I wasn't worth the investment. Remember that? Silence. Francesca, that happened 5 years ago in the living room. You said I wasn't special and there was no return on investment with me. I don't remember saying I do. More silence, then we can discuss this in person at graduation. We're coming to Madeline's ceremony, and I know you'll be there, Dad. I hung up. He did not call back. That night, I sat in my small apartment, which I had paid for myself with money I had earned, and reflected on that conversation. He forgot, or chose not to remember. Either way, he'd never seen me. Not really. But in 3 months, he would. And that moment would not come because I forced him to look. It would be because he was unable to look away. The weeks before graduation became strangely quiet. I knew they were coming. Mom, Dad, Madeline, and the entire Perfect Family unit descended on campus to celebrate Madeline's big accomplishment. They had reserved a hotel, scheduled a dinner, and ordered flowers for her. They still didn't know the whole picture. Madeline told them I was at Whitmore, but she was unaware of the Whitfield. She was unaware of the valedictorian honor. She had no idea I had been asked to deliver the commencement address. Dr. Carter called to check in. She had made the trip to watch. Would you like me to notify your family about the speech? No, Francesca. I want them to hear it along with everyone else. She was silent for a moment. This isn't meant to make them feel bad. No, I replied honestly. It is about telling the truth. If they happen to be in the audience, that is their business. Reese drove up to the ceremony. She helped me choose a dress. It was the first new piece of clothing I had purchased in over 2 years that wasn't from a thrift store. Navy blue, simple and elegant. You look like a CEO, she commented. I feel like throwing up. It's probably the same thing. I was unable to sleep the night before my graduation. Not from nerves exactly. I kept wondering how I would feel if I saw them. Will the old pain come back? Would I want them to be hurt the same way I was hurt? I stared at the ceiling until 3 a.m., looking for answers. What I discovered surprised me. I didn't seek vengeance. I did not want them to suffer. I simply wanted to be free. And I'd be there tomorrow, either way. Hello. I'd like to pause for a moment. If you've ever been underestimated by your own family, or if you know what it's like to work twice as hard for half the recognition, please share your experience in the comments. I'd like to know how many of us have been through this, and if you're enjoying the story so far, click the like button. It's very helpful. Now back to graduation morning, May 19th. The weather felt almost ironic, with a bright sun and a clear blue sky. Whitmore Stadium had a seating capacity of 3,200. By 9:30 a.m., it was almost full. Families pouring through the gates, flowers and balloons everywhere, and the sound of excited conversation fills the air. I arrived early and slipped in through the faculty entrance. My regalia differed from the other graduates. Yes, I wore a standard black gown, but across my shoulders was the valedictorian's gold sash. The Whitfield Scholar Medallion was pinned to my chest, its bronze surface gleaming in the morning light. I took my seat in the VIP section in front of the stage, which was reserved for honors students and speakers. Madeline was taking selfies with her friends about 25 feet away, in the general graduate section. She had not seen me yet. My parents sat in the front row of the audience, dead center, with the best seats in the house. Dad wore his navy suit, which he saved for special occasions. Mom wore a cream-colored dress and held a massive bouquet of roses in her lap. Between them sat an empty chair, most likely used for coats and purses. Not for me. Never for me. Dad was fiddling with his camera, adjusting the settings, preparing to capture Madeline's moment. Mom was smiling and waving to someone across the aisle. They looked so happy and proud. They had no idea. The university president approached the podium. The crowd went silent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Whitmore University Class of 2025 commencement ceremony. Applause. Cheers. I sat completely still, hands folded in my lap. In a few minutes they would call out my name, and everything would change. I looked back at my parents, their expectant expressions, their cameras ready for Madeline's shining moment. Soon, I thought, you would see me. The ceremony unfolded in waves. Welcome speech, acknowledgments, honorary degrees, and the usual pageantry that stretches time like taffy. The university president returned to the podium. Now it is my great honor to introduce this year's valedictorian and Whitfield Scholar. I felt my heart rate increase, a student who has demonstrated exceptional resilience, academic excellence, and moral fortitude. My mother leaned over to speak with my father from the audience. He nodded, adjusted his camera lens, and pointed to Madeline. Please join me in welcoming Francesca Delaney. Nothing happened during that brief pause. Then I stood. 3,200 pairs of eyes turned to me. I walked toward the podium, my heels clicking on the stage floor and the gold sash swaying with each step. The Whitfield medallion gleamed on my chest, and from the front row, I saw my parents' faces change. Dad's hand froze around his camera. Mom's bouquet slid sideways. Confusion came first. Who is that? Then, recognition. Wait. Is that a shock? It cannot be. Then nothing but a pale, stricken silence. Madeline turned her head toward the stage. Her jaw dropped. I noticed her mouthing my name. Francesca. I reached the podium and adjusted the microphone. 3,200 people applauded. My parents did not. They just sat there frozen, as if someone had pressed pause on their entire existence. For the first time in my life, they looked at me. Really looking. Not at Madeline. Not through me. At me. I let the applause fade. I then leaned into the microphone. Good morning, everyone. My voice was steady and calm. I was told 5 years ago that I was not worth the investment. My mother's hand flew to her mouth from the front row. Dad's camera hung uselessly at his side, so I began to speak. I was told I didn't have what it takes. My voice echoed throughout the stadium, amplified by the sound system and steady as a heartbeat. I was told to expect less from myself because others expected less from me. However, as 3,200 people sat in complete silence, I learned to expect more. I discussed the 4 jobs, the 5 to 6 hours of sleep, the instant ramen dinners, and the used textbooks. I discussed what it means to create something from nothing. Not because you wanted to prove anyone wrong, but because you needed to prove yourself correct. I didn't mention any names. I did not point fingers. I did not need to. The most valuable gift I received was not financial support or encouragement. It was the chance to discover who I am without anyone's validation. My mother was in the front row, crying. Not the proud, joyful tears of a graduation ceremony. Something rare. Something that looked like grief. My father sat motionless, staring at the podium like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe he was. To anyone who has ever been told, "You're not enough." I paused, letting the words settle. You are. You always have been. I looked out at the sea of faces, at the other graduates who'd struggled, at the parents who'd sacrificed, at the friends who'd believed, and yes, at my own family sitting in the front row like statues. I am not here because someone believed in me. I am here because I learned to believe in myself. The applause that followed was thunderous. People rose to their feet, standing ovation, 3,200 people cheering for a girl they'd never met. I stepped back from the podium, and as I descended the stage, I saw Charles Kensington III waiting at the bottom. But he wasn't the only one. The reception area buzzed with champagne and congratulations. I was shaking hands with the dean when I saw them approaching. My parents moving through the crowd like they were wading through water. Dad reached me first. Francesca. His voice was hoarse. Why didn't you tell us? I accepted a glass of sparkling water from a passing server, took a sip. Have you ever asked? He opened his mouth, closed it. Mom arrived beside him. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Baby, I'm so sorry. We did not know. So sorry you knew. I kept my voice even. You chose not to see. That is not fair. Dad started. Fair? The word came out calm, not sharp. You told me I wasn't worth investing in. You paid $4.3 million for Madeline's education and told me to figure it out myself. That's what happened. Mom reached for me. I stepped back. Francesca, please. I'm not angry, I said. And I meant it. The anger had burned away years ago, replaced by something cleaner. But I'm not the same person who left your house 5 years ago. Dad's jaw tightened. I made an error. I said things I shouldn't have. You said what you believed. I met his eyes. You were right about one thing, though. I wasn't worth the investment. Not to you, but I was worth every sacrifice I made for myself. He flinched like I'd struck him. Charles Kensington III appeared at my elbow, extending his hand. Miss Delaney, brilliant speech. The foundation is proud to have you. I shook his hand while my parents watched. The founder of one of the nation's most prestigious scholarships, treating their worthless daughter like a treasure. I saw it hit them then, the full weight of what they'd missed, what they'd thrown away, after Mr. Kensington moved on. I turned back to my parents. They looked smaller somehow, diminished. I'm not going to pretend everything's fine, I said, because it's not. Francesca, please, Mom whispered. Can we just talk as a family? We are talking. I mean, really talk. Come home for the summer, let us know. The word was firm, but not harsh. I have a job in New York. I start in 12 days. I won't be coming home. Dad stepped forward. You're cutting us off just like that. I'm setting boundaries. I held my voice steady. There's a difference. What do you want from us? His voice cracked. For the first time in my life, I saw my father look lost. Tell me what you want, and I'll do it. I considered the question. Really considered it. I don't want anything from you anymore. That's the point. I took a breath. But if you want to talk, really talk, you can call me. I might answer. I might not. It depends on whether you're calling to apologize or to make yourself feel better. Mom was crying again. We love you, Francesca. We've always loved you. Maybe, I said. But love isn't just words. It's choices. And you made yours. Madeline appeared at the edge of our circle, hovering uncertainly. Francesca. She hesitated. Congratulations. Thank you. No hug, no tearful reconciliation. But no cruelty either. I'll call you sometime, I told her. If you want. She nodded, eyes wet. I'd like that. I turned and walked away, not running, not escaping, just moving forward. Dr. Carter was waiting by the exit, a quiet smile on her face. You did well, she said. I'm free, I replied. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. The ripples started before my parents even left campus. At the reception, I watched it happen. Watched the slow realizations spread through the crowd of family, friends, and acquaintances. Mrs. Hargrove from the country club approached my mother. Caroline, I didn't know Francesca went to Whitmore and Whitfield Scholar. You must be so proud. My mother's smile looked like it hurt. Yes, we're very proud. How on earth did you keep it a secret? If my daughter won that, I'd have it on billboards. My mother didn't have an answer. Over the following weeks, the questions multiplied. Dad's business partners asked about me. Saw your daughter's speech online. Incredible story. You must have really pushed her to excel. He couldn't tell them the truth. That he'd done the opposite. Madeline called me 4 days after graduation. Mom hasn't stopped crying. Dad barely talks. He just sits there. I'm sad to hear that. Are you? I thought about it. I don't want them to suffer, but I'm not responsible for their feelings. Silence on the line. Francesca. I'm sorry. I should have asked. I should have paid attention. I was so wrapped up in my own stuff. And I know you knew I was oblivious. I knew you had no reason to notice. I halted. Neither of us chose the way they raised us, but we can choose what happens next. More silence. Do you hate me? No. And I meant it. I don't have the energy to hate anyone. I just want to move forward. Can we maybe get coffee sometime? Start over? I thought about my sister, about the girl who'd gotten everything and still ended up empty-handed in a different way. Yeah, I said. I'd like that, I said. 10 weeks after graduation, I stood in my new apartment in Manhattan. It was small, a studio really. 2 windows overlooking a brick wall, kitchen the size of a closet. But it was mine. I'd signed the lease with money from my first paycheck at Morrison & Associates, one of the top financial consulting firms in the city. Entry-level position, long hours, steep learning curve. I'd never been happier. Dr. Carter called on a Saturday morning. How's the big city treating you? Exhausting, exciting, everything they warned me about. She laughed. That sounds about right. I'm proud of you, Francesca. I hope you know that. I do. Thank you for everything. Reese visited the following weekend. She walked into my studio, looked around, and declared it exactly as small and depressing as expected. Then she hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. You did it, Frankie. You actually did it. One evening I found a letter in my mailbox, handwritten, 4 pages, my mother's looping script. Dear Francesca, I don't expect you to forgive us. I'm not sure I would if I were you. She wrote about regret, about the 1,000 small ways she'd failed me, about watching me on that stage and realizing she'd been looking at a stranger who was also her daughter. I know I can't undo what happened, but I want you to know. I see you now. I see who you've become. And I am so sorry I didn't see you sooner. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't respond. Not yet. Not because I was punishing her, but because I needed time to figure out what I wanted to say, if anything. For once, the choice was mine. Okay, we're almost at the end, but I have to ask, if you were in my shoes, would you forgive your parents? Comment yes if you'd forgive them, no if you wouldn't, or maybe if like me you'd need time. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. We've got so many more stories like this one coming. Alright, here's how it all ended. I used to think love was something you earned. That if I was smart enough, good enough, successful enough, my parents would finally see me. That their approval was a prize at the end of some invisible race. 5 years of struggle taught me something different. You can't make someone love you the right way. You can't earn what should have been given freely, and you can't spend your whole life waiting for people to notice your worth. At some point, you have to notice it yourself. I look at my life now, my apartment, my job, my friends who chose me, and I realize something. I built this, every piece of it. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but out of necessity. My parents' rejection didn't break me. It rebuilt me. The girl who sat in that living room 5 years ago, desperate for her father's approval, she doesn't exist anymore. In her place is a woman who knows exactly what she's worth and doesn't need anyone else to validate it. Some nights I still think about them, about the family dinners I wasn't invited to, the Christmas photos without my face, the $250,000 they spent on my sister while I ate ramen in a rented room. It still hurts sometimes. I don't think it ever stops hurting completely. But the hurt doesn't control me anymore. I've learned something that took years to understand. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about releasing your own grip on the pain. I'm not there yet. Not fully. But I'm working on it. And for the first time in my life, I'm working on it for me. Not to make anyone else comfortable. Not to keep the peace. Just for me. 7 months after graduation, my phone rang. Dad. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. Hello, Francesca. His voice sounded different. Tired. Thank you for picking up. I wasn't sure I would. Silence then. I deserve that. I waited. I've been thinking every day since graduation, trying to figure out what to say to you. He paused. I keep coming up empty. Then just say what's true. Another long pause. I was mistaken. Not just about the money. About everything. The way I treated you. The things I said. The years I didn't call. Didn't ask. Didn't. His voice cracked. I have no excuse. I was your father. And I failed you. I listened to him breathe on the other end of the line. "I hear you," I said finally. "That's all." "What did you expect?" "I do not know. I thought maybe you'd tell me how to fix this. It's not my job to tell you how to fix what you broke." More silence. "You're correct." He sounded older than I'd ever heard him. "You're absolutely right." But I took a breath. "If you want to try, I'm willing to let you." "You are?" "I'm not promising anything. No family dinners, no pretending everything's fine. But if you want to have a real conversation, honest, no deflecting, I'll listen." "That's more than I deserve." "Yes, it is." He laughed, a small broken sound. "You've always been the strong one, Francesca. I was just too blind to see it." "Yeah," I said. "You were." We talked for a few more minutes. Nothing profound. Just two people trying to find common ground across years of wreckage. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. It's been 3 years since graduation. I'm still in New York, still at Morrison and Associates, though I've been promoted 3 times. I'm starting my MBA at Colia this fall, paid for by my company. The kid who ate ramen and slept 5 to 6 hours a night. She'd hardly recognize me now, but I haven't forgotten her. I carry her with me every day. Madeline and I meet for coffee twice a month. It's awkward sometimes. We're learning to be sisters as adults, which is strange because we never really were as kids, but she's trying. I can see that now. "I'm sorry I didn't see it," she told me at our last coffee date. "All those years, I was so focused on what I was getting. I never asked what you weren't." "I understand." "How do you not hate me for that? Because you didn't create the system, you just benefited from it." My parents came to visit 6 weeks ago. First time in New York. It was uncomfortable, stilted. Dad spent half the time apologizing. Mom spent the other half crying. But they came. They showed up at my door in my city, in the life I built without them. That meant something. I'm not ready to call us a family again. That word carries too much weight, too much history, but we're something. Working on something. 6 weeks ago, I wrote a check to the Eastbrook State Scholarship Fund. $12,000, anonymous, for students without family financial support. Reese cried when I told her. "Frankie, you're literally changing someone's life. Someone changed mine." I thought about Dr. Carter, about the coffee shop shifts at dawn, about the night I bookmarked the Whitfield Scholarship, never believing I'd actually win it, about how far I've come, and about how far I still want to go. If you're watching this and something in my story resonated with you, if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told you weren't good enough by the people who were supposed to love you most, I want you to hear this. They were wrong. They were always wrong. Your worth is not determined by who sees it. It's not a number on a check or a seat at a table or a place in a photo. Your worth exists whether or not a single person on this planet acknowledges it. I spent 19 years of my life waiting for my parents to notice me. I spent 5 more proving that I didn't need them to. And you know what I finally learned? The approval I was chasing was never going to fill the hole inside me. Only I could do that. Some of you are estranged from your families. Some of you are still fighting for scraps of attention. Some of you are just starting to realize that the love you're getting isn't the love you deserve. Wherever you are in that journey, I want you to know it's okay to protect yourself. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to decide that you matter more than keeping the peace. And it's okay to forgive, but only when you're ready, not a moment before. You don't need your parents, your siblings, or anyone else to confirm what you already know. You are enough. You always have been. Take a look in the mirror and say it out loud. I am enough. That's the first step. The rest, that's up to you. But I believe in you. Because if a girl who was called not worth the investment can stand on a stage in front of 3,200 people as a Whitfield scholar, you can do anything. Thank you for staying until the end.